This video is sponsored by the EA Creator Network. As a member of the network, I'm given the game codes for free, and as such, I'm required to disclose this within my content. Hello again everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another speed build video in The Sims 4. I hope you're all having the most amazing day ever so far, and thank you so much for joining me here today. So as you can see, we are building in Del Sol Valley on this 40 by 30 lot. We are turning this into a big family home for up to 7 Sims, and this house has 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. The garage has been converted into one of the bedrooms, and the further 4 bedrooms are on the upper floor of this house, and I love how this came out so much. I have been explaining on the channel very recently that my kind of influence at the moment is much more realistic family houses, and I think this definitely falls within that category, and I'm obsessed with how it turned out. I was working from a reference image that I found on Pinterest, so I will pop that up on the screen for you now so that you can kind of see what I was working towards. And in terms of the colour scheme, it took me a little bit of time to try and figure it out, but we did get there eventually. And as you can see, we are building this house next to 3 houses that I have previously built, I think within the last few weeks. So there's 3 homes on one lot there. So if you haven't seen that video already, I will pop a card in the top right hand corner for you so that you can check that out if you would like. But yeah, as you can see here, we are working on the exterior. I'm obsessed with this. The only thing that's really bugging me, and I'm gonna disclose it now because I don't want anyone thinking that it's not something that I'm aware of. I am fully aware that the garage placement on this particular lot probably isn't ideal and probably doesn't make the most sense, because obviously, as you can see, the lot end doesn't marry up with the pavement on the right hand side, so it doesn't make the most sense. I think if I were to do this again, I would be tempted to put the garage on the left hand side, so you see like the dip in the pavement, like that would just make the most sense. If I were to do this again, I would definitely change that, but I don't think it's too big of a deal. Obviously the cars in The Sims 4 are not functional, but with it being a more realistic family home, I just wanted to point this out because I didn't want anyone thinking that I wasn't aware of it. I am fully aware that that's the case, but I did decide to use these doors from the Snowy Escape pack, and typically these are used for the middle wall height. However, I actually ended up using them on the shorter wall height and used them as garage doors. I know this is something that is not new. I've seen many Simmers do this, so this is an idea that I have definitely stolen from various members of the community, so thank you all so much for that idea. Usually I would just go for the garage door that came with City Living, but I feel like that's a really obvious choice. And so I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different with this house, but it's shaping up really nicely. As you can see, it's just, I love this house so much. I feel like I'm saying that a lot about my builds lately, and it's maybe because they have that homey, more realistic element to them. But yeah, there's definitely something about them at the moment where it just kind of makes my heart warm, and I'm loving this more realistic side of things. I'm not saying that I'm gonna go back to, like, I'm not gonna go back to doing what I was previously doing. I wouldn't ever say that any of my houses are like not realistic. Obviously they're very, I've come to the conclusion that I have a build style, and it's something that I didn't really think I had, but I think I do. I think I have this build style that's kind of cartoony and in keeping with the game aesthetic, obviously, of The Sims 4, and my interiors are typically quite colourful and a little bit cartoony, so it's kind of nice to try new things, and I would consider doing more realistic builds as a new thing. Does that make sense? I'm hoping it does. I'm not the best at explaining things, as you know. Anyway, we have started working on the landscaping here as well, and something that I did do with this house. Okay, so I've started doing this, and I'm actually layering flower boxes at the moment. So I sized down these base game flower boxes and kind of perch them just on top of these flower boxes. I think these are from Discover University, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm so sorry if that's not right or factual. I'm just trying to go with what my memory is giving me right now, which is not the best source of information, I'm going to be honest. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're from Discover University. So I've started layering flower boxes and I'm kind of loving it. I think I did it in a recent build, but I can't remember off the top of my head. which build it was. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so yeah, you can see the garage here. That does end up being a bedroom, as I was discussing at the beginning of this video, because I've been doing garages in a lot of my builds lately, and I've been turning them into like recreational spaces and cluttered spaces rather than like a functional bedroom. But I did go through, and I think it was when High School Years came out. Was that 2 years ago now? I feel like that might have been 2 years ago. When High School Years came out, I went through a phase of turning the garage into a bedroom for like a teenager. So I did that with this build as well, which means that obviously you can fit your 7 Sims in. If you wanted to turn that into like a rec room with a bar and some musical instruments and some other activities for your Sims, then you can definitely do that. It's just that I opted this time around to turn it into a bedroom. So it was kind of a fun change of pace for me, really. But yeah, the house is pretty much looking as you've seen from the thumbnail, and now we move on to the back of the house. And do you know what, with this back garden, I thought I'm going to put in a little bit of effort here, and that's not to say that I don't ever put effort into my back gardens. The problem with me is that I can't design very good back gardens. I can't. Some of you may agree, some of you may disagree with that statement. But for me personally, back gardens are my Achilles heel. And I have no shame in saying that, really. It's just something that I'm aware of. It's something that I'm not really proactively looking to change right now. However, I would quite like to do some research into back gardens, whether that's other people's back gardens in The Sims, or whether that's doing some research into real life reference images where I can sort of duplicate real life gardens, which is hard to do in The Sims because I feel like every back garden or backyard space is completely different and it reflects the actual house, so it's kind of difficult to do that. But I think it's something that I need to work on. But I think I'm taking the steps in the right direction with this backyard. I'm not necessarily saying that it's the most intricate or the most interesting or the nicest visually to look at. However, there are plenty of activities for your Sims and Sim families to get involved in. There's a barbecue, there's a seating area, there's a swing, there's a slide, there's a pool. I did end up adding a pool in this build. I'm not sure if I included that in the description when I was explaining that at the beginning, but yeah, this house does have a pool, which I was kind of tentative to add, to be completely honest, but then I figured, you know what, this house probably would have a pool, and I think it's just something that the family can kind of get involved with together. Maybe they throw lots of garden parties, or they like having their friends round and family round, and this house just offers everything that you could possibly need and or want, and I think it's a good all-rounder house, and that's probably what I'm going to describe this as. It's a good all-rounder house. So yes, this is the pool. It's not particularly fancy, it's not intricate, it's just a rectangular pool, it's nothing special. But I did add a little floaty in here, as well as the diving board. It's not really a diving board, it's more like a diving platform. But I did add that because I figured it fit with the family dynamic quite well. So I'm going to explain that a little bit more now. So I designed this house for 2 parents, an older child, maybe they're in university or they're in high school, so they are slightly older. Then we have twin boys, we have a young girl who's possibly a child/teen, and then the family have just welcomed a new addition, so they do have an infant as well, which I feel was a little bit unexpected. Obviously very welcome because it's a big happy family, they love each other very much, they love their kids, so it was a surprise, but maybe it was a very welcome surprise. So that's your 7 Sims there, and so I tried to include activities for all of those age ranges, and this is probably something that I would class as like a generations house, actually, when I'm actually looking back and thinking about it, which is something that I haven't done for a while. I feel like I've been focusing on more slightly smaller builds recently, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I used to do these huge builds on the channel so often, and I'm not for a second saying that this is a huge build. I don't think it's huge. I think it's a very good sized build, and it just, like I said, it's a good all-rounder. It just offers everything that a family could possibly need and or want. So I really hope that you guys have some sort of use for this. I hope that you have a family that you can kind of see living here, and as always, please make any amendments that you see fit for your sim families. But yeah, now we move on to the interior, and this is where we start to figure out the floor plan. So let's talk about this for a second as well, because again, I do not want anyone for a second thinking that I am delusional. Okay, so the floor plan, whilst it makes sense, it's a little bit strange, and that's not anything new for me. My floor plans are not considered very eloquent. They're not considered, I don't know how best to explain this, to be completely honest, but my floor plans, I always call them, they're a little bit janky. I have janky floor plans, okay? I'm one of these builders that I'll work on the outside and perfect it, and then I'll move on to the inside. Most people would kind of plan out the exterior and then they'll move on to the interior and start working out the floor plan, the window placement, and then they'll go back outside, finalize the details, add the landscaping, work out the color schemes. I don't do that. My issue is I will not continue working on a build unless I like the look of the outside of it. So it's completely irrelevant for me. So I could pour everything into the exterior and then, I'll work out the floor plan and then the window placement, and then I'll go back outside and then I'll hit it. And I'll think, well, what was the point in me spending all that time on the interior when I don't even like the build, you know? So that's why I do things the way I do. But then there's also a downside to that, and that is that we have here, I'm going to just use this as an example, we have a big, happy family kitchen. Okay, and then we have a nice dining space. Makes sense. We have a downstairs bathroom. Perfect. We have like a throughway at the back, which can be used to access the back of the build. Fantastic. And then the living room could just do with being slightly wider, but because I've already figured out the exterior and the exterior looks perfect, in my opinion, I'm kind of restricted with what I'm doing on the inside. Does that make sense? I'm hoping it does. Again, not the best at explaining things, but this is the kitchen. I've just rambled on through most of it, but we did finally settle on a colour scheme, which I'm not going to harp on about how it takes me ages to figure out a colour scheme. You already know this, but I did use these base game counters, which I've been using a lot lately. I love the counters from base game. I think they're so warm and homey and traditional looking, and they're just fitting in with the vibe of the houses that I'm creating recently, and so I'm using them a lot. I don't know what else to say. I'll eventually move on to a different counter set, I'm sure, but at the moment I am loving these ones from the base game, and the tiles are also from base game. The tiles on the wall, however, are from the Home Chef Hustle stuff pack. I always want to call that a kit, and it's not. It's a stuff pack. Thank goodness stuff packs have made a comeback, by the way. But that's a different conversation to be had. So happy that stuff pack's back. But yeah, then you'll just see me finagling some sort of detailing on the I nearly called it the living room then, on the kitchen, and then we do move on to the dining space. So I was initially thinking I was going to add the living room here, and then I thought that doesn't really make the most sense, especially considering that I had in my mind that this family like to entertain, they like to have their friends and family over, and so it made the most sense for me to have their formal dining room just off the kitchen here, and again, more realistic, because I think this is what you would typically see from a more realistic build. Now, I did use this dining room table from Seasons, and I think the chairs, are they from Discover University or are they from Get Famous? They could be from Get Famous. I'm not entirely sure. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with what items are from what packs. Anyway, and then I was thinking, I really struggled with what to add in all of the corners and things. I was just like, I have no idea what to put here. And I think I ended up changing the archways as well on either side so that they matched, because it was looking very, I would say, silly. So this is where we switch things out here, and it just made more sense. And then I think, what do I add here? Is it a mirror? Oh yeah, it's just a mirror. Okay, yeah, I can see that. I think that's because growing up, I think in our dining room of my family home, we had a mirror in the dining room. Did we? Or am I making that up? I could be making that up. Who knows at this point? Anyway, then I had just some more like furniture pieces, clutter pieces. It took me so long to figure out what I wanted to put in the center of this dining table, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm spending ages on the most minute things, but they're things that for me, they feel so important at the time, and I'm like, if I don't get this right, it's going to throw off the entire look of the room, and I'm going to die on this hill. I absolutely will die on this hill. But that's genuinely how I feel about certain intricate details of things in my Sims houses. Anyway, then we move on to the living room. So that's the room over here. Can you see what I mean? It could just do with being 1 or 2 tiles wider. And I mean wider as in where the fireplace is. If it was just even one tile wider, I think it would work so much better. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Of course it works, but it's, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it could be wider. But it's okay. It's still an okay room. It's definitely not my favorite room of the house. I'm just going to point that out right now as well, because I was also wanting to use a different sofa than I would typically gravitate towards, because I definitely have my favorites. So I used this one. I think this is from the Desert Lux kit, I believe, and I pair it with the armchairs from Cottage Living. The rug is from Growing Together. However, it is worth noting that I do switch out the swatch off camera, because I feel like I've overused this particular swatch, and because I changed the swatches of the armchairs on either side as well, I think I ended up making them blue, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, this room, I don't know, for some reason there's something really off about it, and I can't quite work out what it is. I think I also end up changing the curtains off camera as well to the more sheer ones from the Parenthood pack, and then I also end up using them throughout the build as well, which I don't know if that's a realistic thing, to be completely honest. So like me, for example, when my husband and I moved into our house, he bought loads of the same blinds, but from like obviously all the different measurements for the windows. So we have the same blinds throughout our entire house, apart from in the kitchen where we've got a slightly different blind setup. But I don't know how realistic that is, like in terms of like Sims builds or other people's houses in real life, but I suppose it's not even worth thinking about because it doesn't really matter. I don't really know why I'm mentioning it. And then this is when I decided that the family was going to have an infant. So this is when I start sort of adding in what I call like the family clutter. So like the baskets, the toys, the infant playmat, and just various clutter pieces, just to sort of show and illustrate that this is a family's home. And that is something that I love doing. I've spoken about this on the channel many times. Family homes are my jam. Like that's where I have the most fun, and it's where I think my creativity comes through the best, you know. And do you know what, I was also thinking about this as well. I'm thinking of starting to sort of come around to more modern builds, because me and modern builds don't typically go too well together, you know. We just don't, we never have. But I think I'm boxing myself in, and I'm on this precipice of, okay, well, if I keep going as I am, I'm just gonna keep doing the same things over and over again. And that's one of the reasons that I have a new series on the channel. If you're not familiar, I'll pop a card in the right hand corner for you. I have a new series on the channel where I'm building townhouses for different townie families in The Sims 4. So we started off with the Goth family, and then now we've moved on to the Landgrab family. And of course the Landgrab family, they're very well to do. And I've noticed in my research that they usually have like a more modern home. So I had to build right next door to the Goths, because I'm building townhouses or row houses, depending on where you're from, will be dependent on what you call them. And the stark contrast between the Goth house and the Landgrab house was just, I loved it. I love how it looks, and I can't wait to see which other families we end up going for, because I think there's going to end up being about 5 or 6 of these townhouses on this big lot that we're working on in Willow Creek. And for the Landgrab family, I actually designed a more sort of modern townhouse, and I was quite taken aback with how well it came out. Is it the best build I've ever done? No, but I'm trying something new, and I was just surprised. I was quite taken aback with how good it looked. So I'm thinking of trying more modern builds on the channel, perhaps. But we'll see how it all pans out. Who knows what the year or what the next couple of years are going to bring. Anyway, I went on a complete ramble and a tangent about something that wasn't even important. But anyway, we have moved on to the garage space here. So the family have converted this into a space for their eldest child. As I was saying at the beginning, they're perhaps at a high school or they're at university or something like that. So they maybe don't live here full time. Maybe they do. I don't really know the storyline, how you would like to sort of play this out. But in my head, they're maybe not here all the time. Sometimes if they are a uni student, for example, they might live on campus and they might come visit their family's home once every few months. I don't really know how you want to sort of pan this out, but that was my idea for this. I just wanted to turn it into a bedroom because it's been so long since I've done this and I had an absolute blast cluttering up. Excuse me, I keep like stumbling over my words. I had an absolute blast cluttering up this space and I love how it turned out. I think it looks fantastic. I used a lot of items from the Basement Treasures kit. They came in really handy. I really like that kit. I do. I'm hoping, speaking of kits, I'm hoping that they're going to start bringing out, I don't want to say kits that we actually want, because that doesn't sound good. But, so for example, they gave us the heart-shaped bed, but it was all dismantled, right? But it would be really cool for them to bring out a kit, or maybe even like an update, you know, for like us OG Simmers that remember the Sims, the original Sims, and then the Sims 2 and the Sims 3, perhaps with some items from each of those games, you know, like the heart-shaped bed, the blow-up furniture, just stuff like that. It would be nice to see. I don't know if anyone else would like to see something like that, but I definitely would as an OG Sims player. Anyway, we rambled on through the entire garage bedroom. So that's that one, and then now we move on to the main bedroom, which is upstairs. I took the liberty of furnishing the bathrooms off camera because they're pretty much direct replicas of the one downstairs. I didn't really feel the need to put you through watching me decorate 2 extra bathrooms. But yeah, we do have an ensuite off the main bedroom, and then we have another bathroom just at the top of the stairs there that the kids can use, which I thought was kind of a nice idea. The main bedroom is very minimally decorated. Minimally? What on earth am I saying? Minimally decorated, which is typical of my main bedrooms, I'm going to be honest. But I did try and do a little bit more zhuzhing with the clutter on this piece here, which I am actually quite pleased about. I think it looks really nice. But yeah, this didn't take too much time to finish up at all because there really isn't too much going on in here. But again, quite typical of my main bedrooms. But yeah, then we just finished this up. And then I was thinking, okay, well, maybe one of the parents likes doing yoga. So we pull out some clutter here. I had some clutter pieces onto the bedside tables, as I would usually do, because I always add a pair of glasses. And I think that's because I wear glasses when I'm watching TV or when I'm playing on my PC, for example. So I always add a pair of glasses onto the bedside table. But yeah, then we move on to the nursery for the infant. Now, the reason that I say that this was probably an unexpected sort of surprise is because I think the family would have had an office in this room, and then when they found out that they were expecting, they had to turn this into a nursery and move the computer downstairs. If you remember, we actually put like a computer on a desk as you walk in from the back garden, which is a good use of the space, but would you really have an office there? Probably not. So I feel like the family did have an office here, and then when they found out they were expecting, they were like, oh no, we need to turn this into a nursery, otherwise there's nowhere for the baby to go. So that's what I ended up doing here. So I think it's really sweet. And then I'm thinking with the timelines of things, perhaps the eldest child that's currently outside, by the time this baby needs its own space and its own room, they could maybe like move some of the kids around, so they could put the twin boys outside and then like this little baby could move into their room or something. There's a lot of possibilities with this house, and so yeah, I'm just really pleased with it. So that's the nursery done. And then we move on to this bedroom here. Now, I do need to give a shout out to my friend April, aka Miss Simrino. You guys are already probably familiar with her, but she recently did an apartment renovation and she did a colour scheme that was blue and orange with like pops of yellow. So I was very much inspired by her when I was creating this bedroom, because I haven't really been going too out there with my kids' builds recently, and usually, like back in the day, I'm gonna say back in the day like I've been doing this for decades, but I would really go to town on the kids' rooms, and I'm not saying I don't do that now, but I really did do that with these two kids' rooms, and I'm so happy with how they came out. So shout out to you, April. Thank you so much for the idea for this colour scheme. I love how this turned out. So yeah, as I was saying, this is for twin boys. I mean, it could be for twin girls if you wanted. It doesn't really matter. It could be for a boy and a girl, like whatever you want to do. But sometimes I like doing kids' bedrooms that are specific to like the kids that I have in my mind. Sometimes I do more generic ones. And then every now and again, I'll do something like this where I'll do something that's quite specific for the kids that I imagine in here. So that's what I ended up doing here. And there's so much clutter going on. There's so much colour being thrown around. It really is a fun, vibrant space. And I love how this turned out. And okay, look, like, listen. I don't know why I do this, but particularly when I do kids' rooms with hardwood floors, I will try and put as many rugs down as is physically possible. I don't know whether that's because, like, in my heart of hearts, like, what if one of the kids, and I don't think, like, kids can't fall over in The Sims, or not that I'm aware of. Like, if the kids fell over and they fell on the hardwood floor, they'd hurt themselves so much. So I'm like, well, if they fell over on a rug, it wouldn't hurt them as much, you know, like, so that's always in the back of my mind for some unknown reason. But yeah, I love how this I love how this room came out. There's just so much going on in here, and I'm pretty obsessed with it. So I really hope you like this as well. Then we're just adding some final touches here before moving on to the final bedroom. And I also add these string lights up at the top of the bunk bed. Does anyone else add things at the top of the bunk bed because they feel like if you were sleeping up there and there was nothing on the wall, it would just be a bit, I don't know, kind of boring? Anyway, so this is the girls' room. If you had 8 Sims, you could definitely add a bunk bed in here. It's the same size as the other room that we've just worked on. You could add another single bed in here if you wanted to. I just had this family dynamic in my mind, and I didn't want to like force loads of the kids to sort of share each other's spaces because I didn't want the house to feel cramped. That's definitely not what I wanted this house to be. So yeah, as you can see, the colour scheme in here at the moment is extremely pink, extremely purple. There's already a lot going on. However, I would like to point out the feature wall that I'm attempting to create at the moment, which is just behind the bed. I end up removing that, and then we just end up going for the white and pink paneling that you can see in the rest of the room. I don't know, it was just looking a little bit overwhelming and a little bit too like, whoa, my eyes were starting to hurt at one point, and I thought that's not the vibe that I want to go for with this house or with this room. But I also wanted it to be super fun at the same time. I don't know, for some reason, I'm looking at the footage here. This is the bedroom that took me the longest. And I think looking back, I would have assumed that it was going to be the garage bedroom that would have taken me the longest. Sorry. And it wasn't. It was this one. And I have no idea why. I was so indecisive. And I was like, okay, there's an empty wall space there. I need to fill that with something. There's an empty wall space there. And I got really obsessive with it. And then you'll see at the end, I have this moment where I'm looking at a wall and there's just loads of stuff on it, and then you'll see me delete a few pieces because it was looking really silly. And I just thought I want it to be cluttered, of course. I want it to sort of reflect the child that's in here, but at the same time I didn't want it to be like, whoa, my eyes, you know. The last thing I want is for someone to download one of my builds and go, whoa, okay, you really went to town here, Rach. Like, you need to just calm down a little bit. So I end up just turning it back a little bit, you know, which I think works. But yeah, I really like this room. It feels like it's been a while since I've done a pink bedroom. Someone may come and correct me, because it might not have been that long. Like, let's be real for a second. It might not have been that long. It might just be me thinking that it feels long. So like here, for instance, I'm just covering literally every spare piece of wall with stuff. It just has to have stuff on it. It's like a disease that I have at this point. I really need to just try and calm down. But anyway, that is pretty much it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed this. But if you would like to download this house from the gallery, you can do so. My origin ID is RachelPedd. Tray files, as always, are linked down in the description box just down below. You can get them for free from SimFileShare. But thank you so much everyone for joining me here today. I really hope you enjoyed this. You all take care, and I will see you again next time. Bye.